Good morning, welcome. Again, my name is Lance Beck. I'm President and CEO of the Greater Spokane Valley Chamber of Commerce. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this morning's call. I want to start out with a little bit of basic guidance for participation in the call today. We ask that all guests keep their mics muted throughout the call. We are recording this call and a link will be available to rewatch by later today. We have a huge volume of questions that came in before, and so we've worked the presentation to try and answer as many of those as possible. And so we're going to hold questions until the very end. Should we have additional time at the end of the presentation, we will work through some of those as well. Should your question not get answered throughout the presentation, our team at the Valley Chamber will participate alongside the school districts to facilitate getting answers to you directly via your email address. In the chat box, you can feel free to enter questions using your first name, last name, followed by your email address, so that we can ensure getting you a response in a timely manner here over the next couple of days to your question directly. Again, the email address to send those questions to, should you want to send them directly, would be info@SpokaneValleyChamber.org. Our staff will put that over in the chat box right now so that you can see that there. At this time, with the full slate for today, I want to go ahead and get started. We want to start off by acknowledging our chamber partners this morning. Our investor partner is Modern Electric Water Company. Our visionary partners are Alliant Employee Benefits, BNSF Railways, Multicare Valley Hospital, Providence Healthcare, Spokane International Airport, STCU, and Waste Management. And you'll notice we may take brief pauses just to mute everybody, so that was a good example of that needing to be done there. So again, we ask that you keep your mics muted throughout the call so that everybody can hear the speakers clearly. I also want to thank our community partners, the City of Liberty Lake, the City of Millwood, the City of Spokane Valley, and all of our corporate partners listed here. At this time, I'd also like to recognize our membership of the Valley Chamber. It is your support that keeps our organization working on the daily basis here on behalf of the business community here in the Greater Spokane Valley. And then last but not least, our dignitaries that are in the audience today. It'd be a little awkward to ask you to stand at the moment, so we're going to ask that you use the reaction tool down in your toolbar to wave. And I know we have representatives from the state representatives, city council members, and numerous board members of our various school districts that are on this call. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for your service to our community. At this time, I would like to acknowledge and introduce our underwriting sponsor for today's program, STCU. Joining us this morning is STCU President and CEO Ezra Eckhart. A Spokane native, Ezra became STCU President and CEO on January 1st, 2018. A distinguished graduate of the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, Ezra served 6 years in the U.S. Army, including supporting operations in Rwanda, Bosnia, Liberia, and as well as company commander at Fort Benning, Georgia. Ezra holds an MBA from Gonzaga University, where he has been an adjunct professor at the Jepson School of Business. Following his military service, Ezra held management positions with Honeywell and Microsoft. He was then president and chief operating officer of Sterling Bank when it became merged with Umpqua Bank, where he became the executive vice president of operations. Ezra, if you're on the line, please go ahead and unmute. We'll welcome you.
Thanks, Lance. I appreciate the introduction. And we wanted to just take a couple minutes here and say thank you to the community. These are truly unprecedented times, and none of us would have been able to predict this. My wife is an educator in District 81, and this morning we were actually talking about all the changes that are going to happen between now and the end of the year. And I know for most of the educators on the phone here, there's still lots of changes on the horizon. There's, how are we going to accommodate end of the year celebrations? We're not going to have a track season. We're not going to have a baseball season. But when I think about what brings our community together and what really makes us special, I think we can always fall back on the flexibility and innovation and ingenuity of the educators that are here on the phone and joining us by video, but then also across the rest of the community. And we think about the guidance that you're bringing to our students and keeping things calm and on track and working towards solutions in learning at home and things that we would have never expected even 6 or 7 weeks ago that are going to become a part of our future as we look out into 2020 and beyond. And then all of the hard work that's gone into not just making sure that students stay on track with their education, but making sure that the students are safe and that their families are secure and fed and cared for. And I know at STCU, we devote several days of the week to support the school districts in delivering food all across the community and finding creative ways to celebrate all the transitions that are going to happen this year with the high school seniors and many of the educators that are retiring. So we want to say extra thanks to all of the representatives from East Valley and West Valley and Freeman and Central Valley that are on the phone. And it doesn't really matter whether you cheer for the Eagles or the Scotties or the Knights or the Bears or the Titans, or maybe the Falcons down the road here as I see the new high school popping up. We can all come together as a community and work greater together by being able to support all of the educational opportunities in our community. And we want to say also thank you to you, Lance, for the Greater Valley Chamber of Commerce for convening this forum to bring our educators together to talk about some of the things that they're experiencing and to see how we can continue to collaborate and partner as a community to be able to support our future. And I want to just end with one additional shout out to the 4 school districts, because I think what you model here in terms of the collaboration and partnership for our community in the Greater Valley here is exceptional. And the more we can share ideas and come together as a community, the stronger we're going to be in the future. So we're happy to be able to be a part of this and to be able to support the Valley Chamber. And I'll turn it back over to you, Lance.
Thank you, Ezra, and thank you to STCU again for the support of this event and helping the Chamber here. Our mission at the Valley Chamber is to build relationships, drive collaboration, and champion opportunity. You're certainly helping us accomplish that goal on a daily basis with your guys' support and guidance through this challenging period of time. At this time, I'd like to introduce our panel of speakers today. We've got some great minds in the room here. So Ben Small has served as superintendent of Central Valley School District since 2008. He has more than 17 years experience leading school districts as a superintendent. Ben began his career in education 30 years ago, teaching middle school in Walla Walla. Superintendent Small is a founding board member and past president of PACE and a past chair of the Greater Spokane Valley Chamber of Commerce. He also serves on the board of trustees of GSI and the WSU College of Medicine's Dean's Advisory Council. Thank you, Ben, for joining us. Kelly Shea is finishing his 5th year as superintendent for East Valley School District. In his 33 years of public education, Kelly has served as an elementary teacher. There we go. And again, please keep your mics muted throughout the call.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll try and work through those as they pop up. So sorry again about that. Kelly Shea is finishing his 5th year as superintendent for East Valley School District. In his 33 years of public education, Kelly has served as an elementary teacher, as an elementary principal, as a central office administrator, and as a school superintendent. Kelly has earned a bachelor's and master's degree, as well as a principal certificate from Whitworth University, go Bucks, and his superintendent certificate from Washington State University. Dr. Randy Russell has served as superintendent of Freeman School District for 9 years. Randy has served 32 years as a teacher, coach, assistant principal, and principal in addition to his time as superintendent. This experience was in Washington, Idaho, and Montana. He is a member of both the WASA Board of Directors and the AASA Governing Board. Dr. Gene Sementi has led West Valley School District as superintendent for the past 8 years. He is a former teacher, coach, and has held every district leadership position. His 31-year career with West Valley is coming to an end with his well-deserved retirement this July. Thank you, Gene, for your service, and congratulations on a well-earned retirement there. And then last but not least, joining us is Kyle Rydell. Kyle joined the West Valley School District team as Assistant Superintendent last July. He served as Superintendent in Liberty and Republic, Washington, and had a long tenure prior to that with East Valley School District. Kyle will become West Valley's Superintendent on July 1st. So at this time, I'm going to invite Kelly, Jean, Kyle, Ben. I would like you to go ahead and unmute yourselves now. All right, looks like we got you all on there. Okay. Gentlemen, I want to start by thanking you for your service to our communities. With a little quick math, and I say this quick, I see nearly 140 years of service to the education system amongst you all, so that is just simply incredible. Thank you for your service. As we jump into the conversation today, I'll go ahead and tee up the first topic. We have you all here, and it may come as a surprise to some on the call that you actually work quite directly with each other on other topics and prior to this crisis. And so, Gene, I'd like to turn it over to you to kind of get us started here today.
So the Valley School District superintendents, I think, are fairly unique in Washington State in the way we work together. A couple of examples of how we do that is we have 4 alternative programs, alternative high school programs that are very fluid and are open to enrollment for many of the Valley school districts. We were able to pull off getting Spokane Valley Tech funded and have been offering that program for several years now. And again, that's a cooperative program across all 4 districts. Beyond that, though, we work together on a weekly basis. Typically, throughout this pandemic, we've been in contact multiple times every week, either with a Zoom conference or texting, phone calls. When it makes sense for us to be big and have all the resources of a big district, so combined, we represent about 23,000 students here in the Valley. And when it makes sense for us to be big with collaboration, with professional development, with leadership development, we coalesce and collaborate a great deal. At the same time, when it makes sense for us to be more nimble and it is advantageous for us to be smaller, we have that ability as well. It's really been a pleasure to be able to work with the other superintendents and other school districts. And I think it really puts us in a fairly unique and very positive position across the state.
Good morning, everybody. Randy Freeman. And I'd like to what Jean mentioned. Really, our 3 ships, SHIPS, are around our relationships, our leadership, and our partnerships. And for the 5 of us, we are close friends. We do a lot of things away from school together, and we trust each other. And so then when we're working on our leadership together, because we have that relationship and we are so connected, we're able to really dive in and roll up our sleeves. Many a time we'll be able to talk about topics, issues, opportunities with 4 or 5 heads in the room, which help each one of us become better leaders. And it ends up benefiting, as Jean said, 23,000 students, not just one school district in particular. I'm really proud of my colleagues. I think they do a phenomenal job. They love kids. They want to serve. They want to do their very best for not just the school district, but also the community that they're in. And one of the things that the 5 of us are really thankful for as superintendents is just the partnerships that we have with, the business industry, with our parents, with our staff members, with the children that we serve, and that we can complement each other. Freeman can complement West Valley, CV, and East Valley, and oftentimes CV can complement the other 3 districts and vice versa all the way through. And it certainly allows us an opportunity to do a better job of serving kids and also do a better job of connecting those relationships and partnerships within the Valley. And it's starting to spread across the entire Spokane region as well as at the state level.
Just to add one thing from my perspective, having been born and raised in the Spokane Valley, I never said that I lived in Central Valley or East Valley or West Valley. I always said that I lived in the Valley. Even though we have boundaries, sometimes kind of arbitrary, whether it's the Spokane River or whether it's a road, we're one valley. And we have people that may live in one district, but they work in another. And so we have to constantly work together to make sure that we're representing the whole valley and not always just our individual school districts. And so I just want to echo what the others have said. It has been a pleasure and a gift to be able to work as closely as we do with the other district superintendents.
Yeah, and I agree with my colleagues and would like to add my commitment to continuing to work together. One of the things that I do notice, however, and I do think we have more in common than we have that is different. However, with the 3 sitting superintendents, East Valley and West Valley and Freeman, one of the differences is I have hair and they do not. But as soon as I say that, I realize that having hair during this pandemic is not very advantageous. And that I don't think my hair's been cut for, I haven't had hair cut for about 3 months. But that we are more alike than we are different is huge. And we are differing in size. We all have different numbers of students, but we share so much staff, families that cross the borders. We have connections. And so as we take a look at this and how we've worked together, we've supported one another, but understand and know, we also understand and know that each of us will be very different and can be very different in how we respond to different events in our districts.
Thank you, guys. And I think that sets a great tone for the rest of the meeting here. And so as we look at additional topics, let's start off by looking at the district priorities amid the COVID-19 crisis. And we'll really start off with health and safety. And Ben, I'll have you start right back up there on that one.
So as we started planning for this pandemic, it was some of our first meetings started in late February, early March. And we were planning for what we thought would eventualities be, a 2-week closure of 1 or 2 schools, and then how to recover from that 2 to 3 week closure moving forward. And so as we took a look at that, one of the things that we were doing is we were helping to stop the spread of the virus. We had amped up cleaning. We had protocols. We had put opportunities and contingency plans in place for social distancing and those types of things. But as we moved forward, really we in the Central Valley School District, and I think this mirrors all of ours, we set forward really 4 main areas that we wanted to look at. And those 4 main areas for us were do our part as a school district to stop the spread of the virus and maintain safety. We wanted to make sure, as this shifted into more of a long-term, we wanted to make sure that our students were connected and cared for, and that our families maintained a connection to us in the Central Valley School District. We wanted to make sure that students had access to learning. We started out with different levels and phases of that, and so we'll talk about that. But we wanted to have students to have access of meaningful continuous learning that prepared them for the next school year as much as possible. And we in the Central Valley School District, and this is a tough one to measure, and that is, we wanted to build community trust and faith in us as a Central Valley School District and all Valley School Districts moving forward. And we can cover each of the topics and activities that we've done under each of those outcomes as we move forward. And I would turn it over to Kelly to talk about health and safety students and staff.
So first and foremost, how do we make sure that we protect our kids, our staff, as well as our families? And so trying to do everything we can to live up to the stay-at-home order is something that we have tried to make sure that we did. However, we have had to have people come in because there are some essential functions that needed to be done. First and foremost, I think for all of us was getting meals out to kids. And I know that we were all sending meals out within the first few days after the school closure. In East Valley, I believe that we have 14 separate stops where we run our buses with lunches on board, and we go to our elementary schools for one stop, but then we also go out into concentrated areas, and particularly places where our families have the most difficult time being able to actually get down to maybe one of our schools or one of our designated sites. So we're literally going into our mobile home parks, our apartment complexes, and making sure that we have meals provided for those families that are in need of those. And then at this point, I think we're serving anywhere from 800 to 1,200 sacks a day. And that means that there's 2,400 meals because there's breakfast and lunch included. And this number continues to grow as time goes on. So I'll leave the child care part up to Randy.
Yeah, so in Freeman, as Ben and Kelly both mentioned, the safety precautions were taken early. Almost, our 4 school districts started weeks ahead before students left of actually cleaning the building, getting in, taking safety precautions. And that was our very first priority. How can we make it safe for kids and staff and anybody that was also maybe bringing their kids onto campus? Like in East Valley, food delivery for us is a big deal. We have 900 students in Freeman. And this week we are serving both breakfast and lunch to 380 of our 900 students. So that's a pretty big chunk of students, and we're glad we can do it. Our staff's done a phenomenal job. It's been extremely collaborative. I'm really proud of our staff in Freeman. I'm proud of the staffs in the other 3 school districts. We took on the challenge like East Valley, CV, and West Valley did when the governor asked us to roll up our sleeves and the state superintendent asked us to lean in, and all 4 districts did that. And like in the other districts, we offer childcare and still do for anybody that has a need in terms of if you're a first responder or medical personnel, if you work for a grocery store, you work for a pharmacy, if you have a connection to the military. It was a way for us to continue to provide those services for all of our partners and families who are taking care of us. And with that, I'm going to send it on to Gene, or to Ben, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so in West Valley, so we, like the other districts, we started planning a week or 2 before the closure and really started planning in earnest the week before. We worked very closely with Freeman School District to develop and then fine tune our plan, and felt like we had a pretty good set of priorities. And our priorities have been the same since our last day of school, which was March 13th until now. They haven't changed. Our top priority then was to stop transmission of the disease. And so the governor didn't close schools because he thought it was the best educational outcome. I think we can all agree that our kids learn better and do better and are better cared for when we're doing face-to-face instruction in the school, which is what we're best at. But that the governor decided that was not going to be feasible through this pandemic, and so he closed schools. So our priority number one has been to stop transmission. Our second priority has been to keep staff safe, to keep students safe, to keep our community safe, and make sure that, and part of what that included was our third priority, which was beginning to feed kids one day after our closure. And we're feeding right now about 850 to 900 students a day. So somewhere in the neighborhood of about 17 to 1,800 meals a day. And we're well over 50,000 meals since the closure. We're very proud of that. Our next priority was to provide childcare for the children of first responders, healthcare workers, active duty military. Kicked that off pretty quickly within a week of the closure. Really proud of the work we're doing there. And then we got to the next big bucket for us that we wanted to make sure we were attending to were our seniors. Kids who were planning to graduate this year, who have had their senior years dramatically interrupted, making sure that we were still able to graduate them on time, that no one was harmed academically by this closure, and that work continues. It's very individualized at this point in our three high schools, but it's going forward. We're very encouraged by it. And then the last priority, which is still critically important, and we worked on all of these priorities at the same time, was to provide education for our students that were home. We started checking out Chromebooks. We've checked out over 1,000 Chromebooks to our students. We've turned the parking lots in some of our schools into hotspots for the community for free Wi-Fi. We're providing packets to students that don't have an internet connection or prefer paper pencil. And as the closure's gone on, we've ramped up the complexity and rigor around our online delivery as well. So we're feeling really good about that as well.
So as I look at our response throughout each of those outcomes that we have said that are really important to us, we were working on all four of those outcomes at the same time. So we were working on how we were going to move forward with learning, getting, which we started with, which was resources that first week, getting resources in the hands of parents so that they could keep their children active and engaged in learning. And then in the second week, we moved to a more teacher-designed lessons that were particularly connected to the curriculum. And then we have moved forward into a continuous learning model. Our learning model for the Central Valley School District, we have a guidance for our continuous learning. We have 3 documents that line out student engagement. Those documents are available online or will be available online today as we move forward. I have to tell you, the continuous learning model for us, it's bumpy as we move forward with, are we doing too much? Are we doing too little? And how much are we asking of parents to do? How much can we support from a virtual position? And everywhere in between there. And we will continue to get better at this as we move forward, and we believe that will continue. In fact, we know we're planning for that to continue until the end of the school year. We in the Central Valley School District also wanted to make sure that we were following the instructions and direction from the governor. And as we move forward with those things, the governor and our superintendent of public instruction asked us to reach out and really do 2 things. And those 2 things were we're feeding our families and our children who need to be fed, and we're also providing daycare or childcare for our first responders, our healthcare workers, pharmacy workers, and grocery workers as well. And so we stepped up, and in the first day after the closure, we were providing a breakfast and lunch for students who needed it. We are currently at 15 sites across the district. We have served 144,000 meals to those students. We've also continued our Food for Thought program, which is it was a program started by our Kiwanis Club of Liberty Lake, and that Kiwanis Club had created a program where those students who were in need were able to take home a weekend food pack over the weekend in order to remain to take care of food insecurity. We've served over 3,800 lunches to students who cannot make it to our food sites, and those 3,800 students, 3,800 lunches to those students have been delivered to their doors by volunteers moving forward as we go forward. We have to look at this as a whole community response, and I'm proud of our community for stepping up for volunteering. We have over 15 volunteer drivers who deliver food on Fridays from STCU. Thank you, Ezra, for that work and continuing to step up from STCU in order for us to meet what is the basic needs of many of our families in the Central Valley School District. You know, it's important to note as we look at continuous learning that we have estimate 4,000 students who are learning at home right now with 3 or more students in their home. And that is a heavy lift for some. Others have it all figured out. Others are have said, this is down and maybe I want some more. Others are saying, hold on, let's, it's too much right now. And others we still haven't been able to connect with because of connectivity issues or other barriers to learning. So we're providing those packets to students on an individual basis so that they can continue to engage as we move forward. I can tell you I have 2 children at home who are learning in this model, and it certainly is not the same. One is very, very driven by grades. Elliot is very driven by grades, and he wants to make sure that he engages in order to have that. And then the other one, Gracie, is probably not the best homeschool student. So we're trying to adjust to that as well. I would just say that for us, let's continue to work together, continue to talk to your teachers, continue to work with your principals. If there are things you need to support, please reach out to your individual building principal and teachers. And so as we do that, we've distributed over 4,800 Chromebooks to families who need those devices. So.
Thank you, gentlemen. To answer a couple of the questions that are coming through the chat, we do want to address that a full recap of Q&A will be made available to everyone on the call. That was one burning question. And then additionally, we will be, as we move through the call, many of the topics that questions are popping up on are addressed during the presentation. So please, if you're on the line, be patient with us. We're getting through the topics one by one here, and your topic will likely be answered, and then we will get to Q&A towards the end of the program. Moving forward, I want to talk more about what the go forward looks like for each of the districts between now and the end of the school year. We have quite a bit to unpack in here, quite a few burning questions from the audience on what this looks like. And so we'll go ahead and start by having Jean, if you want to lead off on what this looks like in West Valley School District, that would be great.
Yeah, so we want to talk a little bit about, so what's the rest of this school year look like? So tomorrow is May 1st. We're going to go to school until June 19th in West Valley. We'll stay true to that June 19th date, which is a week longer than we had anticipated. It was on our calendar, but we'll continue to be on the job through June 19th with all of our staff. The next 6 weeks, expect are going to be a lot more new material. Where we up in the first few weeks of the closure, we focused primarily on review and practice and enrichment. And now it's new learning, new content. So we surveyed our students last week, school by school, and about 94 or 95% of our kids are very engaged with their learning, keeping up with their lessons, doing what we asked them to do. The other 6% for a variety of reasons. Some are struggling with a place to live. Some have been are staying with relatives out of the area, even out of the state. So we feel like that 94, 95% mark is a pretty solid mark. One of the topics that came up pretty quickly in the closure was how are we going to grade students? And like all the other districts in the region, especially the Valley, and I'm sure they'll address this, our first priority was we didn't want any student's academic record to be harmed because they happened to be going to school during a pandemic. So our last day of school was March 13th, and we made a commitment that no student was going to lose credit. So if a student had a C on March 13th, and they can get a C or better going forward. We're not going to have any student that was passing on March 13th who then failed a class because of circumstances that were out of their control, whether it was a shelter, place to live, whether it was food security, whether it was access to internet. We wanted to make sure that those kids continued to have the grade that they had earned until March 13th. Now, as we go through the rest of the year, students, like I said, 95% of them are still engaged. Many of them are raising their grades. So if they had a C on March 13th, their goals are to raise those grades to a B or an A. And students are working hard on that. And we're talking about preschool students all the way up through 18-year-olds at the high school level. So they're grinding away on that pretty hard. So we've made a commitment that we're not going to fail a student during this pandemic window. So all of our K-8 students are going to advance to the next grade next year. Our high school students, GPAs won't be hurt by this event. They can only be helped by this event. And our staff's been great about that. So our goal with the grading was to do no harm. One of the questions that came up, we got a little heads up on earlier this morning, was how's this going to work for seniors who are in very content-driven, maybe it's a math class, maybe it's calculus, maybe it's college and the high school calculus or running start calculus or AP calculus. So those students are still completing all of that work. So at the high school level, those kids in those classes that are college prep classes and college credit bearing classes are still grinding away pretty hard on those things. The other question that came up right off the bat was what's graduation going to look like? And as you know, our first hope was that the closure would be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, maybe a month and a half, but we would be back in school by the middle of May and be able to have a graduation as we typically do. We were all of us were on a call yesterday with the Superintendent of Public Instruction in Olympia, and it doesn't look like graduation as we've done it in the past. In the West Valley, we've typically held those graduations at the Opera House downtown, where it's shoulder to shoulder, people are packed in. It doesn't look like that's going to be a possibility in June. We booked some dates in August to see if by chance the restrictions are loosened up enough by then that we could do something on site, or excuse me, at the Opera House in August. In the meantime, we're exploring virtual graduations. That's not our first choice. We're in the process right now of surveying our parents and students, senior students, to see what they want their graduation to look like. Do they want to stick with virtual on June 7th, or do they want to wait and do something more face-to-face and more interactive later in the summer? So we want to make sure that we give them the best experience that we can, given the situation at the moment. And So we're and I think all of us in the Valley are looking at that slightly differently, but we've been in contact across the districts through this whole closure. And one of the topics we always talk about is what are your plans for graduation? So still working hard on that.
So in Freeman, one of the very first things that we did was we talked about managing some realistic expectations for students and staff and families, knowing that everybody was going through this for the first time. So we put together a first step plan to get us from the day that the students left campus, to spring break. And as you can imagine, for about 3% of the kids, they were really happy that school got canceled. But for 97% of the kids, and I think that's pretty fair across all 4 districts, there were a lot of students that were really crushed. Staff has been devastated. It's been a really difficult situation, not just for families, but also for kids and for staff. And so talking about managing the expectations was there was going to be no harm done to any students with their learning. We were going to do everything we could as a school district, whether it was to connect them through the internet. So in Freeman, about 93% of our kids have internet connectivity, and we were able to get Chromebooks into their hands. For those students that didn't have internet connectivity, we've been hand delivering packets of homework and collecting homework from those students. And that was the first step to get us to spring break. We had virtual conferences with all of our families that were able to sign up for those. And we felt like things had gone pretty good with just a couple little minor bumps and bruises up through spring break. When we found out that we weren't going to be able to have the kids back on campus for the rest of the year, I just saw our staff just go into high gear. They just turned it up a notch. They said, we're gonna figure this out. It's not going to be perfect. We're going to have to work on it. And I really appreciate that everybody on this call and all the parents really understand that this has been a steep learning curve for the staff as well as for the kids. Most staff is not trained to provide teaching in a virtual or online capacity. And we have great professional development. Our principals are running staff meetings. Teachers are working in teams, and they're doing the very, very best they can to provide the kids with support. So with that no harm to students, we also said no harm to the staff. We weren't expecting anybody to be a hero here, for the rest of the semester. So we put together a really good grading policy based off the state regulations, the framework, and that was a student was going to get no lower of a grade than what they had on March 16th in Freeman. And from that, they had an opportunity to raise their grades, and our teachers were going to make it challenging. We put a schedule together so that teachers could work with kids and connect with kids. We had our kindergarten teachers running a virtual classroom with their kindergartners. And we felt like if a kindergarten teacher could run a virtual classroom with 5- and 6-year-olds, then we could do it for every class. And again, I'm just really proud of our staff and our parents and family for leaning in. I think they've just done an amazing job. And we're going to make sure that things are good for the kids and the staff and families for the remainder of this school year. Our high school admin's done a phenomenal job of putting together a way to recognize every single senior. Make sure that they had a yard sign, in their sign. We've got a virtual prom. We're going to figure something out for graduation. And we're also going to make sure that students that have an IEP and need extra support get that extra support. We're going to make sure that students who are failing a class are going to find a way to be able to be engaged and get their grades up and have a good learning experience given a really difficult situation. And again, I just appreciate people on this call and families supporting the fact that they know that school districts are in a completely new area that we've never been in our careers. Lance said that we have 140 years of education. This is a new one for me in my 32nd year, probably the second most challenging thing I've ever been through in my career. So I'm very thankful. It's not perfect, but I think we've got a great plan, and I believe that the other 3 school districts do as well.
So in an attempt not to be redundant of what's already been shared, because so much that's going on in one district is going on in all of our districts, I'm trying to identify an area that hasn't been talked about yet. I do want to note that we have learned that when it comes to grading at the high school level, we had options, and East Valley is going with the A, B, C, or D, I believe, which is what the other districts are doing too. There are no Fs. However, there could be incompletes. And so if a student happened to have an F grade as of the day in which we close schools, then those students either one, have an opportunity right now to improve that grade. But if they don't make an effort to try to improve that grade as of for us, March 16th, then it would be determined that they would get an incomplete. Now, what an incomplete means is then they will have an opportunity to basically earn that credit in another way at a later time. And we'll be working with, our counselors will be working with kids to make sure that we either get them in an online program or they take that extra class. And then there's some waiver opportunities. Some kids will be allowed to waive some electives so that if they need to make up, say, an English or a science or a math class, they'd be able to do that. And the other thing is that the state is going to put a code. I'm not exactly sure what this looks like, but on their transcript with their grades, they will be given a code that will designate that these grades were given during the time of the COVID pandemic. And I know that there's a lot of work going on across the state, working with higher institutions to make sure that we don't use the same process and standards for determining whether kids get into college or whether they get accepted to trade schools, that people are nimble enough to understand that this is a different time. So we'll have to look at kids and their continued learning in a different way.
Thank you, guys. A couple questions that I think you all can address real quickly. One being the end of the school year and what date you're all planning to go through. I think that's one that we've seen quite a bit here. That's a very broad question, probably easy to answer in that regard.
Well, we understand that there's a requirement that OSBI has put forward. We understand that we will not be able to meet the requirements that are part of our requirements as a normal school year. And in order to get a waiver, we will have to add days to the end of the school year in order to have that work for us in Central Valley. We are working on that right now, and we'll put out a communication to our families that will come out shortly after this, in the next, probably tomorrow, that will look at how we will adjust our calendar moving forward. So that's where we're at. We understand and know that we're going to have to lengthen our school day. We agree we have to lengthen our school, not day, school year, and we'll be getting that out to our families as soon as we've got all of the adjustments needed to be made in our school calendar.
So East Valley will be going to school through the 19th of June. And then because the state law requires us to have 180 school days, but it also requires us to have 1,027 instructional hours on average K through 12. We're not going to meet the 1,027 instructional hours. The days that, the distance learning day is not the same as coming to school. However, we will be putting in a waiver because we will probably, based on our calculations, we'll have 178 school days. So we'll ask the state to waive the 2 days that are required to meet the 180, as well as the instructional hours. But we plan on going to school through the 19th of June.
So in Freeman, we feel like we had a pretty smooth transition from the time that the students left campus until we were able to actually make things as good as they could be without having students here on campus. Our teachers prepared the week before, knowing of the potential that students might not be on campus. So we're currently looking at maybe adding a day or two to our original calendar. And as long as we can fulfill the waiver requirements from the state for that, we would most likely, if we were given permission to do so, finish up by June the 12th.
Lance, if I could go through just a little bit about the last month and a half of the school year, if I could, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely.
I would really encourage, one of the things that we did is develop guidelines for elementary, middle, and high school continuous learning. And those guidelines, like I said, will be that are based off of guidance and direction from OSPI, are on our website, and would encourage our parents to take a look at that. And really, if they feel that we are not meeting those guidelines or we're doing too much of that, please talk to your principal, your school counselor. And we really do want to support our families as we move through this piece of that. This last month of this and a half of the school year, we will spend time getting better at this transition. You know, one of the things that I truly believe, that is a really important as we take a look at this is that we believe that learning is a relationship, starts with a relationship base. And our teachers are moved out of being able to see children, to look in their eye, to see the aha moments when they really get something or they are struggling with something. And now we're doing that virtually. And so teachers are going to have to respond to that. Teachers have to respond differently to a classroom disruption than they've had to in the past. And so as we work through this, our teachers are working through a very different model for them. However, I can guarantee you our teachers are giving a great effort and have been working very, very hard. I'm very proud of the staff, just as all of our Valley school districts are, of our attempts in moving forward. But we also recognize that we will fall short sometimes, but our commitment is to make sure that we are getting better. So the last month and a half of the school year, we'll work on that. Grades, we have established our grades, grading system for our high schoolers and our middle school students as an A through D and an incomplete. And that means that if a student has attempted to get a good grade, then we're going to give them an incomplete, and we'll be working with them in the next school year to complete that course. And if they've fallen short, that incomplete will be given. And that'll be for our middle school and our high school. Our elementary school is different. We have a standards-based grading at the elementary school, and so adjustments will be made for that as well. Seniors and graduations, we surveyed our seniors and our senior families and asked them, would they really like to have an in-person graduation versus a virtual graduation? What was their preference? And overwhelmingly, the senior class in the Central Valley School District, that all four of our high schools that have graduating ceremonies or graduation ceremonies have said that they would rather delay graduation in order to have an in-person graduation rather than a virtual graduation. So we have been working on our celebrating our seniors, and on Monday, a plan will be forthcoming from each of our high schools to our seniors that will line out our preference and how we would move forward with that. But we really are looking for ways to figure out how we can have an in-person graduation. There may have to be physical distancing and it may look different, but we are really wanting to celebrate our seniors in that way moving forward.
Okay, and a final follow-up, because this has been a trend for this topic, and I think everyone agrees on the line that we are going to there's going to be bumps in the roads. I think as we look at this and this process continues forward, one tone that I do hear is how are the districts planning to engage the parents in this process between now and the end of the year, and then our next subject being fall 2020. We can probably bridge right into that from this, but I think that question is one that a lot of people, just in the flow of information, how are you planning as school districts to engage the parents through this process?
So that's a great question, Lance. So all of our teachers have set office hours where they're available to communicate with parents. And we're contacting every family at least once a week. And typically, it's the parent that's contacted as opposed to the student to make sure that the student has what they need to be successful. Do they have a computer? Do they have school supplies? Are they getting fed? Is there anything the district can do to help? So we're in touch with parents, every single day. And I think more importantly, our buildings are manned, our phones are being answered. And any parent that wants to contact teacher or principal or district office gets a pretty quick response. And I expect that's going to continue not just through the end of the year, but through the summer. Undoubtedly, there'll be some questions that pop up over the summer that need to be addressed prior to the start of school. So we'll continue to engage with parents like we always do throughout the rest of the school year, throughout the summer, as we plan for next year.
So in Freeman, as a parent of two students that go to school here, I can just say firsthand that when I've had questions as a parent, I've been able to connect directly with my kids' teacher. And certainly if there's a question beyond that, as a parent, I would also have the opportunity to connect with the principal if it wasn't being able to be solved at the teacher level. But, we've got such a fantastic group of teachers. I mean, they are dedicated. And yeah, in a teaching field, when you've got, 3,000 teachers, or how many ever teachers there are, in this region, there are going to be a couple that it might be more difficult for, or this new learning environment is going to be challenging. But I've just seen our teachers and many other teachers in our other 3 districts, like really roll up their sleeves. And I would encourage parents to connect directly with the teacher if they have a question about what's happening with their child in that class, just like you would if we had kids here on campus. I think looking forward for us in Freeman, we're going to use common sense. We're going to keep 2 hands on the steering wheel, and we're going to remain very, very flexible, even though we're building multiple plans at one time. And I know that my 3 colleagues are doing the same thing. They're building multiple plans, whether it be for the start of the school, end of the school year, start of the school year, looking at how we make it all work. But just use common sense. And I know the 5 of us are very open. If there's a concern or a question, you can reach out and contact any one of us. We're available just like teachers or principals are.
So in in East Valley, we have reached out to parents a couple times with surveys. We've gotten decent response, usually about somewhere between a 1/4 and a 1/3 of our community will respond to those. But, every week I have been writing a letter to our families, and I can only hope that those letters are being read, trying to be as informative as we possibly can. But in every single letter that I write, it's always the invitation. If you got any questions, if you have any needs, you just got to reach out to me and let me know. Where there's managing the expectations has been the challenge. One family, what we're doing is not enough. Another family, it's too much. But if you let us know exactly kind of where you're at and what your needs are, we can do everything we can to try to accommodate those. But I just encourage people to reach out and contact me, email, call, and then we'll try to resolve whatever issues there may be. As far as next year is concerned, we all hope that we can resume school on the first day. And that's what we are planning for. But there is so many unknowns out there that I think it's important that we keep a broad perspective and try to understand what are the possibilities and try to be prepared for each one of those. And I think that's what we'll be spending our summers doing, and trying to be ready for whatever might come before us.
One of the things that we'll be looking at is crafting a thought exchange engagement for our families to get their feel of what they're feeling about the start of the school year. We are currently surveying our parents of students who are impacted by the opening of Ridgeline High School. And so we've got a survey going out now that will inform us as to that transition plan as we move forward. As we move forward and plan for the start of the school year, one of the things that we are planning for right now is the start of a normal school year. And then we'll start with that, and we'll back from that as to, will we start with social distancing measures? Will we start later than we normally start? But a lot of that will depend on, it all will depend on whether or not the governor lifts his order and allows us to move forward. Some of the questions we're asking ourselves right now, and we'll be asking parents as we take a look at the start of the next school year, how do we put a capstone on the end of this school year? How do we give our, especially our students who are transitioning to a different level from 5th to 6th, from 8th to 9th, how do we give them a capstone experience at each of the levels that they've been at? And we'll plan through that and figure ways out. We will, our principals will be reaching out to families to figure out what best meets their needs as well as we move forward. Again, continuing to take a look, put students in the center of what we do and how we move forward, while at the same time know that we have to start the next school year to the best advantage of our students. One of the things that we're going to have to grapple with is how do we create opportunities for students to make up for missed learning? Because we know that there will be gaps in learning over this last part of this school year. So all of those will go into our plan as we look to open the next school year in the Central Valley School District.
And Gene and Kyle, I don't know if you want to touch on next year as well.
Yeah, Kyle's going to take this one.
So as much as my freshman son enjoys being home for a short period of time, he is so hopeful that we will be back in school full time next year. Homeschool, as Ben said, for one of his children at home is not the best fit, and I would say that fits for my son as well. So the last 7 weeks, we have learned a great deal in regards to what it means to shift from face-to-face instruction to digital instruction, and there is no replacement for face-to-face. That relationship that our teachers have with their students when they walk in their classroom is our most important priority that we have as public schools. And so it's our hope, of course, with the governor's blessing, that we will be back in school next fall. But with that, we continue to have contingency plans as far as what we've learned lately with how to connect to our families, how to issue Chromebooks, how to have virtual office hours. So by doing that, we also are looking at ways that we can continue to focus on the needs of our students moving forward. The one area that Ben addressed is a vital area. So across the nation, there is a huge gap in regards to the instruction students were receiving from March 13th to June 19th. And so we're going to have to look at what that instruction at the beginning of the year, that review, practice, and enrich, or some type of a gap filler for all students so that they're ready. You look at a math class, a student going from one class that leads into another, they're going to have some gaps to their learning. So as a system, we'll have to continue to look at what that fall transition back to school to face-to-face looks like. But I think, and again, a lot of these go back to the questions that were asked, and this was one of the highest questions that was asked, was what does fall look like? And it's been amazing to see our teams working together, our teachers, our classified staff, continually working together to meet the needs of our students right now. And so they're very hopeful that we'll be back to school full time. Our teaching and learning teams across all of our districts have continued to work together and model things as a team approach to what that looks like. So I think it's an important piece that, yes, we would all hope we're back in school and we're planning for that, but also to have that contingency plan as we look forward.
Okay, we're gonna move on to the next subject here, and just an update on we have several very large construction projects taking place with the districts, and so one being Ridgeline there with the largest project in the county this year as far as permitting dollars go. And so I'd like to just briefly touch through those projects in an update and what work you're able to be completing right now, and if it's been a one bright spot maybe within this pandemic that we've been able to continue on some work along the way. So I'll start with Ben. Why don't we have you lead away on this one?
Thank you very much. One of the areas, as we know, we're in Central Valley, we are a growing school district, and we were very fortunate to pass a bond in 2018 to complete some projects that are very, very important for this community as we grow. The Ridgeline, the governor has allowed our public works projects to continue with restrictions and safety protocol. And our contractors, Garco, LK Clark, Jackson Construction, PW Clark, N.A. Dagerstrom, have just done a wonderful job of making sure that they're following those safety protocols and are allowing our construction projects to continue to move forward. Ridgeline High School is scheduled to open in the fall of 21. And when we look at the fall of 21, that's important for us to alleviate overcrowding at University High School and Central Valley High School. They've progressed nicely, and the site is moving ahead all at the same time. The next project, Horizon Middle School is scheduled to open in the fall of 2020, so 2020. And Horizon Middle School remains on schedule as well. Again, our contractor there, LK Clark, is working to make sure that they're following all of the guidelines and protocols that have been put forward by the governor with this stay-at-home order, and it is progressing nicely. Riverbend Elementary School expansion. This is a project that we were able to add because the bids came in very, very good at Ridgeline High School. And so we're adding 124 student capacity at Riverbend Elementary School, and they are actually ahead of schedule, and we feel good about where we're at there. We're completing 4 HVAC projects across the district at University Elementary School, Progress Elementary School, Broadway Elementary School, and Summit School. And so those projects we've been actually able to move ahead of schedule because we do not have students in the schools at this time. And so those projects are actually going to be completed before we had them completed. And then we have field projects at both Central Valley High School and University High School that were made possible because of the bids coming in so favorable at Ridgeline High School. And so we will have a level playing field at all 3 of our comprehensive high schools in the Central Valley School District, with multi-purpose surfaces, synthetic surfaces that allow us to increase the usage of those fields and hopefully be able to host our high school graduations there this spring and early summer. I'd like to thank our community and our voters for giving us this opportunity to meet the needs of our students by providing appropriate learning environments, and really thank our contractors for moving forward.
So in East Valley, our voters approved 2 capital project levy, one in 2018, one in 2020. And primarily these levies were aimed at improving the safety and security of our schools. And so we were scheduled to begin construction of a secured single point of entries at all of our schools, as well as wiring all of our buildings for a new network camera system, as well as communication systems and so on and so forth. We have taken advantage of the fact that we do not have kids in schools, and we've gotten our contractors and subcontractors to get into the buildings sooner so that we can get started. Our goal is to have our projects done, not only the single point of entries, but also our parking lots at our 4 elementary schools. We're really aiming for everything to be completed by the start of the next school year. And so we're very fortunate to allow the contractors and subcontractors to work during this period of time. And so we feel like we try to capitalize on that.
In Freeman, we're also very thankful and appreciative that our communities supported not just the last levy, but also a capital projects levy and a little foresight by our technology director, Todd Reed. We were able to go to a 1-to-1 before this school year started, which I think really helped us tremendously with this transition to online learning the last month or so. We're going to continue to work forward with all of our projects that were already scheduled. And because of our relationships and the fact that our partnerships with local business has been so great, we were able to get many of them on campus early as allowed by state law to do some of the work. And so we've got parking lots, we've got some HVAC work to do. We've also got some field work that we're doing here on the campus, and we're right on track. We won't be starting any brand new projects, obviously, but thankful that we are able to complete the ones we've got scheduled, and hoping those will all be done before the kids are back on campus at the start of the school year.
So in West Valley, we're very appreciative that the governor lifted the construction order to get some of them back to work. And so we have a couple of projects, major projects that are out for bid right now, and using some blending fundings like what's been previously mentioned with capital projects, but also West Valley applied for over $150,000 in grants and received those, which will help us with some ADA compliance and replacing a boiler in one of our schools that had a 1942 boiler. And so we're excited to get that in the works here soon. But again, just like what was mentioned earlier, we've got some parking lot updates, some HVAC areas that we're addressing, but essentially the pieces to this are just the ongoing maintenance of our facilities as well as we work, especially like Kelly had mentioned, a little earlier in the year, which buys some time to get the projects done before our August and September starts.
Okay, thank you all. I do want to reiterate that because of timing today, we are going to stick to our scheduled close. All questions that have been submitted, both previously via the registration process and then again through the chat box, we will be providing follow-up for those questions. We will be providing a full recap of all the answers that will be available to the individuals who have registered for this call. And so that'll be sent out. It'll probably take us a couple days to work with the school districts to circulate all those answers and be able to get you a response. But we do plan on following up directly with everyone here. So we appreciate your time and willingness to participate with us today on that, and your patience with us to navigate the questions that in some regard are we don't have the answer yet in some cases. And so I think that's the piece that I look from a business perspective when looking at what you gentlemen have to deal with on navigating how to operate a school district. Just being given word that your school year was going to remain in this format through the end of the year, understanding that you've acted as quickly as you have to put plans in place to A, get through the end of this year, and then B, begin planning for next year. We do have plans in the works for a reconvening of this group later in the summer to talk specifics on the start of 2020. I know I saw several questions come through on details, everything from sports to start date to if the school year date format will change, to if we're going to have students showing up 1 day a week type of status. And so again, we can't, in talks with the superintendents, that it's hard to plan any of that yet without clarity from the state. And so as we navigate the immediate need is to get through this school year, but they are actively working on that. And so I'd like to offer a moment for final thoughts from you gentlemen. I know I truly appreciate you taking time out of your day to jump on here, probably a format that is uncomfortable to some extent to all of us still. So thank you for being willing to take a crazy idea of inviting 1,000 of our closest friends from the community to join you in a conversation via your tablets. But I'll start maybe with Ben, and then we'll work our way back down and finish with Gene on his way to retirement here.
Thank you very much, Lance. Thanks for the opportunity here, opportunity to talk with our communities. I want to start where we, or end where we started. And that is, we work together because we think we're greater together. We think that that there certainly are things that each of us want to do different and want to be able to reply to in our unique school districts. I would thank my colleagues for their support. And I would ask our community as we move through this, and as I know our staff, our teachers, our classified staff who are delivering food, our bus drivers who have now become deliverers of meals, our paraeducators who are providing childcare, we are working to step up, and we are committed to continue to do the best that we can for our children and for this community. And we all recognize, at least I think we all do, that on a daily basis we will fall short of our lofty goals of meeting the needs of every child in our school districts. I know that there are questions that we will dig through and certainly will be answering and moving back. One of the things that is very important to us and has been important to us is that we are meeting the needs of all children, children who may not have access to connectivity to the internet, to devices that help them, to children who are served in special education, and how we are going to continue to meet their needs as we move forward, and to those students who may need to be stretched more. And what I would like to say to our entire community is reach out, start with your individual teacher. If you're not being connected with or see progress being made by your student, or you just want to say thank you, I think starting with that individual teacher and working in the best interests of our students moving forward. This will be a long 7 weeks as we work toward the end of the school year. And I just appreciate, I appreciate our parents' support and the task that we all have to take on right now. So thank you guys very, very much. Appreciate it.
So I've been trying to monitor the questions asked in the chat there, and I haven't been able to keep up. I just want to encourage everyone in East Valley. You've got great questions. Please do not hesitate to call me, to send me an email. I may not have the answer, but I definitely will get you to the people who can. There are a lot of things that need to be resolved, and we will get to them, but sometimes we may not know exactly what they are. So please email me or call me, and we will work together to get resolution.
Just a special thanks to Lance and the Chamber and STCU and everybody that was on the call today. Personally, I'm very hopeful about what's ahead of us, and I think that there's a great opportunity for school districts in this difficult time to figure out how to better serve kids and families. And I know that all 4 school districts are up for that challenge. We certainly are in Freeman. I'm really thankful for our students for hanging in there with us. You know, I was especially heartbroken for our seniors at Freeman. Really thankful for the staff and our parents and our community who are so supportive of the school district. And I would just say the same thing as Kelly, that if anybody has any questions at all about anything happening in Freeman, because we can certainly keep improving and doing better, you know, please contact us and we'll do everything we can to take care of you and your family. So thanks everybody for joining us.
Yeah, so first I'd like to thank the chamber for giving us this opportunity to have a town hall. I think it's been very productive and helpful for us. Was a little shocked when I saw the registration numbers were nearing 800 early this morning. So I'm glad we had a chance to talk to our community. And I'd like to take a minute to thank some folks who have just been grinding hard through this. Our teachers have had to completely learn how to redo what they've been doing for years. So it's almost a different job being an online teacher versus a face-to-face teacher. And they've worked hard at it. They've done a great job getting ready for it and rolling it out. And while it hasn't been perfect, it's been a perfect effort. So we're very proud of them for that. Our paraprofessionals are helping put packets together. We're helping with food service. We're helping man the office space in the schools. They're working on professional development. Our food service team has not missed a day through this entire closure and are committed to and dedicated to making sure that we push as many meals out as we possibly can. And they're high quality meals, and the kids that are picking them up, they get a great meal, a great lunch, and a great breakfast, and a big smile from our nutrition staff. Our custodians didn't miss a beat. The minute we closed, they, in the face of some fear about what the outcome might be, they went back into buildings and disinfected every single surface in every single building. It took us almost a week to do that. Bus drivers, same thing with their buses, making sure they're spick and span and disinfected and ready to go when we have an opportunity to bring kids back to school. Bus drivers have also been helping out with food service. They've been delivering food to families who can't get to us for the food. Our technology department has pushed out over 1,000 Chromebooks, and they're delivering more Chromebooks every single day. And if families can't come pick them up, then they're delivering those door to door. Our secretaries have made sure that no phone call went unanswered, no message went without being replied to. I'd like to thank so one of the reasons we've been able to do what we've been doing is the support we've had from our community in passing levies. I want to remind everybody on the call at the moment that West Valley, Freeman, and Central Valley all have levies on the ballot next February. It's going to be as important or more important than ever that we continue to support schools so we can not only get through this pandemic, but get kids back up to where they should be by the end of the next school year, that they're on track to graduate. And finally, our community has been, we've had more offers for help and support than we could take, delivering food and supplies, bringing supplies into the school, connecting with Second Harvest Food Bank. The community has been fantastic. So I really want to give a shout out to them as well. Kyle, anything you want to add?
No, really appreciate the opportunity, Lance, to your team for putting this together. We continue to work together as a team, and we continue to meet every week. Our teaching and learning teams continue to work together to create ideas and thoughts and bounce things off each other as we learn every day, forward thinking as far as what this could look like next week versus what it looked like today. So again, this is a community effort, and as Randy has said, we're going to make mistakes along the way, but we're going to improve from those mistakes each and every day.
Yeah, thank you all again for taking the time and the willingness to step out here and do a presentation like this jointly. I know on the business side in the community, our business recovery work group, which spans numerous economic development, chamber, and private businesses, has gone with that mantra of together we're greater, and working as hard as possible to navigate this path forward. And it's so great to see the same thing happening across the board with our school districts here. It's a pleasure to have you all serve on our Valley Chamber Board of Directors. and your time and energy and focus to participate with the business community is truly unique to our community here. And so again, thank you all and your willingness to be there alongside us. As we mentioned, all questions will be circulated. We will have a full recap of Q&A. Everyone will have access to that. We will work with our districts to answer specific questions to the districts, as well as the generic questions that go all the way across the board. Give us a couple days to get those circulated and put together. A call recap will be up by later this afternoon, so you'll be able to rewatch this video should there be a moment that you wanted to review. I want to thank STCU for your partnership in this event and your support of the Valley Chamber. It truly helps keep us moving forward and driving this important work within the community. At this time, any additional questions you can feel free to send us at the Valley Chamber. Our email address is over there in the chat box. It is info@SpokaneValleyChamber.org. Again, we appreciate your time today and for joining us and helping us set a new high bar for a number of people on a Zoom call in the community. We now know that we can get up to that 700, 800 count here. So that was really exciting. And again, we look forward to bringing you a follow-up to this conversation later in the summer with this same group as we have plans become more formalized for what fall 2020 will look like. So again, thank you all. Stay well, stay healthy, and we are adjourned.